So, welcome. We're at the Tom of Finland house in the Pleasure Park today, and this is part of the series of artist in residency programs that we're doing the final departure interview with the artist. And today we have the presence of Gio Black Peter, who is an artist that reigns sort of from New York, but also holds many other places in the world as his own. And so, welcome.
Thank you.
And so you've now completed 3 months of being here at the Tom House.
Right.
And don't be shy. You can look at the camera. Yeah. We know you're not shy. Yeah. So, how has it been for you being here in general?
It's been good. It's been good.
I noticed that your working schedule has been oftentimes in the night, through the night,
Right.
and sleeping late into the day. And that seems to have been working for you.
Yeah, I think that I started working at night because in New York, the city's quiet. So that's just my usual work schedule when it comes to painting. And I just followed that through here. And it's been nice. The garden is really nice at night. And I get visited by all sorts of critters that I felt like Snow White.
Who visited you?
Skunks, possums, raccoons, some grinder boys, all sorts of nighttime creatures. Yes, exactly. So yeah, it's been nice. I've enjoyed working in the garden. Really.
How was the influence of the garden for you?
Well, okay, so as you've seen in my work, there's a lot of plant material. So it's nice being surrounded by plants, and a lot of the plants that were incorporated in the paintings and drawings were plants that I've encountered while being here in LA. Mm-hmm. And it's so much nicer to be able to see the plant and feel the plant and smell the plant, rather than normally I usually just Google what a passion fruit looks like.
Right.
So it's been nice, and I think that that's why I wanted to have the presentation here in the garden, because this is where I spent most of my time.
Really, you really did actually.
Yeah.
And how was it having an outside studio for you?
It was good. It was good.
Were there drawbacks?
Mosquitoes are not my friends. But besides that, it was good. It was good. I enjoyed it. It was nice, and because I do work at night, I had a lot of really magical moments of the night turning into morning time.
Yes.
And also a lot of really intimate moments within the space in the house. Because everyone is sleeping, so I'm like walking around. I'm actually one of the raccoons.
And we have had raccoons in the house before.
That's right. That's what Steve was saying.
Okay, so when you first came, you were housed in Tom's room.
Yeah, it was important for me to kind of have a connection with the house because of the history, and try to find where I fit into it. I feel like I was having a conversation with Tom through Tom's work. And being a queer artist, I think that there's a lineage, and a lot of the things that I go through with censorship and with how the art world sees my work, are things that Tom probably went through. I'm sure of it. And by that quote that he had up there, which said that he wanted to be part of the Louvre, and they made some room for him, that's my experience, and that's, I think, the experience of a lot of queer artists. So yeah, it felt like it was part of the same story.
So not compromising yourself and hoping that society will actually evolve to the place where they can accept any kind of love.
But yes, but my standpoint is different. There's a lot of, I wanted to find the overlap where me and Tom had something. Where do we connect?
You like dicks?
Besides that,
okay.
I think it was because you have to be defiant for what he did, just to put himself out there. The images that he put out were a reflection of himself, of his sexuality and his fantasies. And whenever an artist puts something out that is personal, it's a big thing. You have to have balls to do that. And for me, it's I see that in other artists. It's always a gift when an artist shares something that's intimate. And yeah, and for me it's the same when I put images that come from myself, are glimpses of me. And the only difference that we have, I think, Tom's perspective and my perspective, is that I think if the Louvre doesn't have room for images that reflect my lifestyle, then fuck the Louvre. I want to have my own Louvre, and I want to house images that reflect the lifestyles of people like me and other queers. That's what the difference is. I think a generational thing, maybe. I don't want acceptance from the Louvre. If they didn't do it for Tom, they didn't include his work. They didn't include the other queer artists that came after him or before him. They didn't include my generation. Then fuck them. I think we're in a place now where we can create our own community, and I think that that's one of the things that I love about this place. It's kind of a refuge for people who feel like they don't have a place, other artists who don't have a place at the table in the art world.
And they do here.
And they do here. I came here, I did my work, I expressed myself how I wanted to, and I see other people that come and do the same, and that's really important. So I think in a way, kind of like, that's kind of what this house is. It's that. If institutions don't accept queer art because I don't know, they're not worried. It has to do with, I think, prejudice of sexuality, because they don't have a problem showing work that is sexual if it's heterosexual in nature. We see many heterosexual painters and illustrators who do show work in the Louvre and other places, and
not a lot of erect penises.
Not a lot of erect penises, but we see women.
Yes.
Women are sexualized in our society. There's not a problem, because what we're doing is we're reflecting the mainstream views of the people in power, and the people in power are heterosexual men. So I think that that's what my experience was here. It's like I came here and it was a refuge, and I can do my work.
So how has it been being in the city of Los Angeles in the bigger scope of what did LA, did it give you anything?
To be honest, I was working. My whole time I was working. Grindr was deleted from my phone for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I went out a couple of times with friends, but I didn't really...
You were really focused.
I had to, because I wanted to do something special, because this was my time here.
Yes.
And the only way I was able to do that was like that.
And you had made your mark here actually several years earlier by having your painting that was erected on the stair in the doorway of
right.
entering into the third floor, huh?
Yeah, but I think the difference was that coming here, there was an expectation that I had for myself. I know there was other people that they wanted to see what it is, what I would have created in that time period. So I had an expectation for myself. I wanted to leave here with work that I was proud of, and I was able to accomplish that, and I'm happy for that.
And quite a diverse amount of work.
It just kind of, we talked about it in the beginning, where I was like, I didn't know I had writer's block. And then it just came. It came organically.
Uh-huh. And as far as now, what's happening with you now? Where are you going?
Everywhere. Where am I going? I'm going back to New York. I feel really focused right now. I want to continue that, and I'm just going to work. I'm going to keep working. I'm going to be in New York for a bit, painting, and then who knows?
Just by what you spoke in the earlier part of this interview, it seems like not that you want to be a symbol or an icon for liberation, but in some ways you are, because you like to provoke that whenever you actually do events and things of that accord. So, I mean, as far as young developing artists of your ilk and otherwise, what would you like to encourage them?
Well, I think the artists that came before me that fought censorship and oppressive conservative values that want to eradicate our values and our lifestyles. Um, the artists that came before me fought that and they opened doors, and those doors don't stay open. So if we don't continue that fight, people like David Wojnarowicz and Robert Mapplethorpe, all those doors that they fought, I shouldn't have to be having the same fights because they fought those fights for me.
Yes.
But those doors close, and I find the responsibility for myself when I think about I can spend 10 hours doing a painting and it could be anything. It can be a painting that's just pretty. I mean, I want to make a pretty painting, but I also want that painting to talk about what is happening right now, which is what's happened before, because if we don't talk about that and we don't fight that censorship and that oppressive nature of like the mainstream heterosexual culture trying to deprive us from existing, then those doors are going to close. And when I think about the next, like a younger artist or the next generation, what I think about it, I don't really think about them in that sense. I think about myself of when I was 13 and when I was 15. I wish that I had a role model. I didn't. We lost a whole generation of artists in the epidemic, and a lot of the artists that remain, they don't speak about about unapologetic queer culture for many different reasons. Sometimes it's for monetary reasons or their fear of being rejected or not being accepted into the Louvre. So when I make work, it's important for me to make work about that. And that's when, for me, art becomes something bigger than just art.
That it's really self-realizing, you mean?
No, not self-realizing, is that I feel like I'm standing up for my community and myself and my belief and my family, which all the other queers, the queers that don't have a voice. The little stage that I have, I want to use that stage and speak up, you know?
So now you have a stage right here, right now. And you've had other stages. I mean, you've actually been able to, you traveled a little bit during your time here. You went and lectured, I think.
I don't know if I lectured.
Did you?
Well, I mean, everywhere I go.
You were on a panel.
Oh, right.
Yes.
For free.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's. I think that's a responsibility. Even like a stage that's social media. I have social media and I have whatever amount of followers, and I feel like, that's what it's for. That's what a stage is for. Who else is going to do it? If we don't stand up for ourselves, who's going to stand up for us?
So I was very sort of impressed. I was impressed because I love maps, and I was really, I really enjoyed and appreciated your artwork that you painted on maps. And have you done that before?
I did the first series of maps in 2008, and it was all about territory. And there are New York maps because I'm from New York, and being an immigrant, I have a very distinctive relationship with territory, and that's what they were about. And I keep making map paintings. Well, I haven't done one in a while, but because where you are, your environment is so detrimental on who you become and your relationship. If you feel comfortable in your space and if you feel welcomed in your in your neighborhood, in your environment. So that's why I do map.
And you said you're an immigrant. And you're an immigrant from where?
From Guatemala. So as we know, this country's being,
lambasted.
Right. It's like the new Iraq. So yeah, I talk about this in my work. That's why I make work.
So going forward now, you're leaving, and where in the world will people happen to find you?
I'll be in New York for a bit, and then I'm probably, I don't know. I was planning on going to Europe. Not sure.
And as far as the work that you created while you're here, is it going to be up online somewhere?
The work, yes, yes, it will live on online.
So
sure.
you'll make sure that there's documentation so people can actually see it.
Yes, it's going to be on my website
Uh-huh.
for sure.
And well, in closing, I mean, you've talked about the foundation, talked about the Tom House,
Right.
And is there anything else that you'd like to speak to?
I
As
think
you have a platform here,
right. I think it's. I think that it's beautiful whenever people of different backgrounds are brought together, and I think this house does that. And I think it was a beautiful experience. I got to meet the people in the house. I got to meet other artists, and and that's what community means.
And you got in touch with nature.
And I got in touch with
nature,
nature.
very
Yeah,
nice.
which
Not
is
that
very
you weren't
important.
on-
Well,
yeah.
actually, that's an LA answer. Being next to Elysian Park, not just for the cruising, but yeah, going to the park and having it. I got to run every morning, which was it was important for me, just so I can focus. That's how I was able to get myself into a focused state of mind and being in this garden. Yeah, it's important for me. There was a moment recently too when I was trying to reflect. The experience is still happening, so I was trying to reflect on what the whole thing meant, and I realized, looking at Tom's characters, they have their dicks out, they're sex positive, they're free spirits, and when I think about these characters, I think this is us. We are Tom's characters.
Yeah.
So that was a nice thought as far as where my place fits into the whole thing. And I think that the artists that spend time in this in the house, that's who they are.
Yeah, we become Tom's men, part of his
Right.
lineage, but also part of his work somehow.
Right. And I recently said to someone, artists never die, and I think that this is a great way to honor art and artists, just to allow other artists to create their work and so on and so on.